Yes, welcome to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, and very soon streaming live. I kind of forgot to do that, but live, we'll be streaming live here in just a few moments on my YouTube channel. That'll be No State Project. And if you're subbed, and you already know that, you'll get a notification that that we're going live. So definitely check that out. But it is July 7th. July 7, 2018, and coming to you live from the fortified compound in San Bernardino, where it is actually hotter the last couple days than in Phoenix. So it was 117 degrees yesterday. That is just terrible. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. But glad to be with you here. A show today being brought to you by Don, and I appreciate his continued support of the big show. If you want to join me here today, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And the passcode is 2020 with the pound sign, so 2020 or the hashtag. You can also instant message me on Skype at FrankRizzo3, and we will get you up on the big broadcast. Instant message me first. Please don't just call the big show. So anyone who does that will probably just get blocked on Skype. So just keep that in mind. What we'll do is we usually bring people up on a break. So if you want to join the show, you're being attacked by a bureaucrat, or you just want to be able to argue about it, you just want to be able to hold an accuser to their burden of proof, maybe just in a more polite way, more professional way, of holding someone to their burden of proof and showing that they may be full of crap and that their beliefs may not be as rooted in reality as they think that they are, although they may not even give a damn. Definitely give us a call here to the big show. And if you dissent on anything that I present here on the show or at markstevens.net, you're more than welcome to call into the broadcast. And that's dissent. If you just want to lie about me, well, we allow that initially anyway. So, but if you do have a legitimate beef and you don't want to just call me a wacko and that I'm nuts, then give us a call, 218-632-9399. That is, but the passcode is 2020 and the pound sign. And I do apologize for missing the broadcast this week on the commercial-free broadcast. I initially didn't do it on Wednesday because most people would be out. Most people would not be listening or watching the big show, so I didn't do it. And then, unfortunately, the next day, I was going to do the show on Thursday, and unfortunately, I found out that afternoon that someone that I had known for 30 years died in his sleep. It was a sudden thing. I had no idea the extent of his health problems. Not an old guy; he's only 50, but he leaves behind, 4 kids and a wife and friends. So one of the things I at least initially start the show off here is you got to take care of yourself. I mean, and I've said this for years, that people will call and unfortunately I get I do regular callers with DUI, and that's a rough one. That is a very rough one. And so my recommendation every single time I have someone I do a consult with that is to do yourself, your friends, and your family a big favor. Don't drink. Don't drink, period. There is no such thing as moderate or responsible drinking. If you are drinking alcohol, you are doing damage to your body. And so a friend of mine, unfortunately, the way it turns out, drank himself to death. They don't show you that in the commercials. They don't show you that. But it is damaging. I have an uncle that died from complications from the diabetes he gave himself from a lifetime of alcoholism. And it's a pretty long, drawn-out, painful death, at least the way my uncle went. This friend of mine died in his sleep, so That's as much as we all could hope for, just not halfway through your life, though. You're talking easily at least 25 years that he cut off his life. So doing that, so, take care of yourself for heaven's sakes. Don't this self-destructive behavior. Even if you're a dick, even if you are a toxic type of person, at least consider your friends and consider your damn family, and the void that your death leaves behind. And at least with me, it's there's this initial shock that somebody I spent part of my youth with. Just gone. And, who the hell wants to find out something like that on Facebook, for heaven's sake? So at least I was able to spare some people that, and I was able to make some calls that day, so that's what I was doing instead of doing a broadcast. Someone's saying, I love those wine alcoholics. They play it off as healthy. Which reminds me of one of my favorite jokes from Norm Macdonald when he was on... it was Saturday Night Live, and saying that, and again, I'm just retelling the joke here. Scientists have created a pill that gives you all the health benefits of red wine, and he said, "Yeah, it's called a grape." Yeah, I've seen more than my share of families that are destroyed because of drugs and alcohol. And alcohol is insidious. Well, but it's legal. It's still stupid. And I don't care if people are going to turn off the show. We are going to get to calls as soon, in the next segment. I never really take calls on the first segment. It's just stupid. It's self-destructive behavior. There's no redeeming benefits to that. People who are drunk are idiots. They act like idiots anyway. It dehydrates you. At the least, it's the immediate thing. You're stupid enough and reckless enough to get behind the wheel of a car, and you could destroy someone's whole life. So, I know it's a risk we all take. Especially, I drove in last night into San Bernardino from Phoenix, from 10 to 3 a.m. there. But no, it's just stupid. And so with the same circle of friends, one of the first deaths of somebody my age, she was 18 years old and had been drinking, and she wasn't driving. The driver was drunk, slammed into went through a stop sign, slammed into a tow truck, sent a friend of mine through the windshield, and she died a week later. So, she should have had a seatbelt on, but she was too stupid drunk to do the right thing. So that was a family destroyed and a huge void in our lives. To think that was 30 years ago. Wow. 30 years. 30 years, a whole life wiped out clean. Why? Because it's so cool to drink alcohol. It's so great. That's why if I had a business and I had to hire somebody, I'd really have to think about hiring a college student. Really? A college student. A functional alcoholic? Someone who's riding the line every single weekend? Are they going to drink themselves to death? Are they going to be alcohol poisoning? So that's my personal rant here about how stupid it is to drink alcohol. Good Lord. Not that it's, gosh, if you got to get high, at least smoke a blunt, for heaven's sakes. Doesn't have nearly the health consequences that you're going to have with alcohol. It's a stupid thing to do. All right, we're going to be getting to your calls. I'll get to call the line connected. It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And the passcode is 2020. We'll get you on the big show. Remember, we are doing a live radio broadcast.
Chris, give it to me now.
Yes, welcome back to the No State Projects here on LRN.FM and also streaming live on my YouTube channel, which of course is No State Project. So you're with me here for 3 hours of Anarchy Radio as we hear every Saturday from 1 to 4. And I gotta point out, we'll get to the calls in just a second. I got another copyright strike on my YouTube channel, and you're not gonna believe the crap. I was stunned. In fact, I took a screen cap of it, and maybe by the time I get some of the success story videos that I've been talking about, I have not actually posted, but there was. Did anybody remember hearing Michael Jackson being played during the last week's broadcast on Saturday? Anybody? I even reviewed the video and I didn't even hear it. But we all know that YouTube, if somebody makes a copyright claim against you, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how stupid it is. It doesn't matter how unfair it is. It doesn't matter if it's false. It doesn't matter if it doesn't even appear in the video. I listened to the part, you can't. Now, I know what they're talking about, because my daughter was downstairs and she's dancing. And she has the Wii dance. And so she was dancing to Michael Jackson. It was on, and and somehow this damn microphone somehow picked that up, and the bots on YouTube picked it up, and I got a copyright strike for that. So background music. Just having it on in the background, you can get a copyright strike just because your microphone happened to pick it up. What a stupid thing. Gosh, I wish I was able to get, I was able to go somewhere other than YouTube and not have to worry about such stupid things. I have my whole damn channel pulled down because of that, something like that. Stupid thing. So, anyhow, let's get back to the call since I am finally connected there. I'll unmute that. Hey, you're gonna have to mute that up there, Tommy. Tom, you're back on the show.
Anyhow, let's get back to
You're gonna have to mute up the feed there, Tom.
Okay, is that better?
That's better. What's up?
Okay, sorry, I was listening to the to the feed and I had the phone sitting down. Anyway, well, can I get to my topic?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, it's I think we've maybe spoken about this before, but again, it's 4th of July weekend. Everybody's doing their fireworks and everything, and and we have a block party here every year right around this time. So the whole block's usually, engaged in a big party and fireworks and such. And I was down a couple doors down, and the sky lights off at one of the Chinese lanterns, the ones that float up in the sky, and you see them go forever, Well, the first one went up, and it was all fine and dandy. And the second one, as he's lighting it, and it takes a little while to heat up, he's telling us about how because I said, I've never seen one of these in person. And he says, yeah, we tried to light these at our wedding, but, the area we were in, it was all dry. Same state here, very close by, and they wouldn't allow it. It was, it was banned at the time. It's too dry and such. So he decides he's going to light them off here. Well, like I said, first one goes up, no problem, no hitch. Second one, as he's lighting it, he's telling this story. It goes up, and going up, and sure as heck, it goes right into a tree, like a really tall tree, like at least 40 feet in the air. It's now on fire, and it's starting to set the tree on fire. And he's standing there going, oh, crap, oh, crap, oh, crap. We're all looking, going, oh, crap, So it finally goes out. We're all relieved. And what does he do? He lights another one. And I'm looking at him. I'm the only one. There's 20, 30 people standing there. I go, what are you doing? Well, and his wife says, well, it can't happen twice. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do you do? You know, and sure enough, the cops did end up going by, but they just drove by real slow. Somebody obviously called them when they saw the tree on fire.
Jeez.
Anyway, and he lights another one, and I'm standing there. What do you do? I mean, I was going to grab the thing out of his hand, but I figured, you know what? I'm trying to get along with everybody. I don't want any more static. What do you do in a situation like that? Wait till the guy burns your house down?
No, obviously, if he's putting your property in danger, you certainly have, it's justified to stop him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm having some more technical problem. My feed just froze. I don't know if we can hear everything on Skype. If the LRN feed is good, I don't know. Maybe we're going to have to reset the YouTube stream. I don't know, but at least they're getting my audio, which is really, but they're not getting your audio. So if all I have is audio on the stream, that's fine. LRN, you're coming through fine. It's definitely a YouTube problem. So I don't. So what they're saying is, just for a recap, that there's a guy blowing off fireworks that may be putting your property in danger, right?
Yep.
So
and not just fireworks. Like I said, this was a Chinese lantern, which is on fire as this thing goes up in the air. So if it lands on anything, and it burns for a while, I'm not sure what if it's phosphorus or whatever it is that's keeping it burning, but it burns until it goes out.
Yeah.
And
okay. Chinese lantern.
Once yeah.
Is that the actual name of it, or is that a slur?
I believe that's what it's called. I believe that's what it's got. I've seen them before. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like it turns into like a little balloon, and the fire's going beneath it, and it's obviously heating the air in the balloon part, and so it drifts up. And I've seen it where people have let off, by the lake, lots of them, and they just float off into oblivion. It looks really cool, but to do that in a neighborhood with lots of trees, when you just were told at your wedding that you can't light them off because it's too dry and a fire hazard, then set a tree on fire and then say, oh, I'm going to light another one. It can't happen twice.
Yeah, well, you've got people that that is a legitimate question. What do we do in a voluntary society when someone's doing that? Well, in a voluntary society, when you don't have a government, you're still going to have services available to protect your property. And I believe a lot, my vision of it is that a lot of things are going to be done in common or paid for, commonly owned and paid for. So what do you do? First of all, do you have justification to stop somebody using whatever force is necessary to stop the damage to your property? I would say yes. That doesn't mean you're holding off and shooting them and killing them. We're talking about the least amount of force necessary to get them to stop. And it could be, well, we're up against the break, so we don't need another tech issue. So let me meet you up there, Tom. We'll be back in just a few moments. My name's Marc Stevens. I don't know what's going on my YouTube feed, but we always have to have tech issues here on the big show. So we'll be back.
Hey, come on, Chris.
Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here for July 7th, 2018, live from the Fortified Compound in San Bernardino. We have lost the YouTube stream, so there is a storm. It actually started raining here in San Bernardino, so I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with it, but hey, my show has been plagued with these stupid tech issues from the very start, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully, while we're doing it, the YouTube stream will come back, but I will have the show still posted. I'll have a static video, just maybe some graphics, and have the audio posted at markstevens.net and also on the YouTube channel there, so we don't miss it. But welcome back. We're talking with Tom, and this is a particular problem. We're talking about what do you do in a voluntary society when you've got neighbors that could potentially set your house on fire because they're being stupid with fireworks. So what before we start discussing this. I want to address just some criticism. When we talk about anarchy and getting to a voluntary society, we're not saying that we want to get rid of the services that people called government provide right now. What we want to get rid of is the manner in which they're provided. We want to get rid of the violent nature in which they're provided. So just provide the same services that would come and help in a situation like this. We're just not going to use a prison system and have a ruling class to provide those services. I mean, that's the way you see it, right, Tom?
Well, you just hit on a key. That was one of my other questions. Without a prison system, let's say, we discussed this the other day in the Skype chat. Let's say the guy that's doing this, and he's very young. Let's say he's in his 20s. He's got a house, probably in debt up to his ears. He owns probably nothing. Everything's on loan. And let's say he does create damage that's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's say he burns my house, garage, everything down, everything that I own. Now, what do we do with this guy? Without a prison system, without any way to make someone, what do we do? There has to be some kind of a prison system.
Well, I think you're misunderstanding what I meant by not having a prison system. What I'm saying is we're not going to have the prison system to support the payment of the services that government provides. I believe that it's still necessary to have a prison system, but the prison system isn't a tool of control to get the people to support those co-government. The prison system is there for legitimately violent antisocial people like George Bush, people like Barack Obama, people like Donald Trump, truly violent individuals who have to be separated from society because they will continue causing the damage that they intend on causing. So that's the distinction. The support for the services is not being done via a prison system.
Right. I totally understand that concept, and I get it. And then, of course, that leads into another whole series of questions is, how do you run a prison system if it's totally private and for profit? Or that's another whole can of worms you can get into right there.
Well, do you think it should? Do you believe that even in a voluntary society or a governmentless society, that something like a prison should be done privately for profit? Is that something that you would advocate?
Well, nobody's going to go to work unless they can make profit. Nobody's going to create a prison and support it and everything else. I mean, I can give you an example. I watched on a PRS or something one time, a long time ago, and I forget what country it's in, but the area that they're in, the prison, they don't have enough people to actually run the prison. So they have guards on the outside of the prison. Nobody gets out. You try to get out, you get shot. The prison itself, it has become a city inside this prison with a hierarchy, of course.
Yeah.
And you have to help. You have to help plant food and grow food and all that. Everybody has chores. If you decide not to help, they put you in an area that is kind of between the inside of the prison and the outside gate. And there was one fella, and I swear I think this is probably the worst position you could ever be in your life. They did this to one guy that was in that prison. He had AIDS and some other things, but he was physically still able to do things, but he just refused. So they put him in between the prison and the outside fence and just left him there to fend for himself, which was impossible. And boy, you want to talk about ostracism.
Yeah. Wow.
It worked pretty good.
It sounds like a place in South America, if I remember right, because I'm definitely familiar with that. I don't know as many details, but what I see, though, Tom, is if we just remove the real offending factor here that enables what we have now and the ruling class, and that is the compulsory support and payment, so that we can still have things that are commonly owned and paid for, that we're just not going to have a ruling class do that. And I think we can have sewer systems and roads, and we can have water, and we can have a prison system for violent repeat incorrigibles. I think we can have that. Because I think what you're looking at, like even with this thing in South America, especially when you're talking about here, so many people are in prison now that are not violent offenders, right?
Right.
So if you've got overcrowd, well, I shouldn't say if. So since we do have severe overcrowding in jails and prisons, if you were to get rid of the code violations, all the nonviolent code violations, we wouldn't have nearly the prison population or the jail population.
Yeah, I agree, and I know you don't like to hear me mention other people's shows, but so I won't say the name. But I just watched a video that really explained a lot of this, and he used the phrase economic, or how do you put it, like a financial or economic ostracism. Whereas if you have created damage and you refuse to pay and you refuse to make things right, then others will know it, and they won't sell you food, and they won't sell you electricity, and they won't sell you water, and pretty soon you're just going to have to leave because nobody's going to deal with you. Bye-bye.
You and I, we've talked about it on a show. I've talked about that on a show. That is not a unique concept. That is not something that somebody just thought up and decided to put out on a podcast. I mean, that's a very old concept. And that's one. Yeah, absolutely. You have you have that. You could, if you have things that are held in common, or like they are now, but they're not paid for on a compulsory prison type basis. If you have evidence, solid, hardcore, irrefutable evidence that somebody has caused damage, whether it's to a house or it's in business or it's a company that has done that, and you have solid evidence of that, then something like that could, I believe, be a part of a voluntary state government-less society where somebody would not be able to get such services.
Right.
It's.
Well, I was going to say, this to me is kind of an important concept because, and I've heard it a long time ago also, and I always forget it, because when we're trying to tell people or have these conversations of we don't want a monopoly on force, and we do want police, and as you just said, we need all these services, we just don't want it forced on us through a monopoly. That economic ostracism seems like a pretty valid idea to bring to people.
Right. Well, what it does too, I certainly see that there's a pretty big incentive to go by the basic rule of society, which is do no harm, or live honestly, injure no one, give every man his due. And so if you have there is an accusation against you, knowing that there could be such consequences, that you would be more inclined to participate in some kind of mediation or arbitration, something to resolve the actual conflict. So hold on, we're up against the break. We'll be back. Hold on, I'll mute you up, Tom. We'll be back here on the No State Project, and we don't get to talk about this too much on the show, but I'm glad we have the opportunity to do that today. We're talking about the mechanics of a government-less society and how it would function. So we'll be back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I am your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted. You can get it at markstevens.net. That's the website. You can also see the replicated success that we have had on a few continents, including North America, Europe, and Israel. Well, not that that's a continent, but also Australia and New Zealand. If you want to learn how to effectively defend yourself against tyrants of all stripes, well, give us a call or check out markstevens.net for Government Indicted, which has a full model on how to deal with these people, how to effectively deal with these people, how to show that somebody is not, that their argument is not valid at all. And so what we employ is the Socratic method to keep the burden of proof on the accuser where it belongs. And when you start calling people out, when you start when you start using the Socratic method and not assuming a burden of proof on yourself, you're going to notice that your the accuser or who's ever making the argument is going to fold really quick. So, well, typically, yeah, you can't maintain their BS exactly why do they believe that that's true. So, but welcome back. We're talking with Tom in the Big D. That's Detroit, Michigan, for those who may not be aware. I don't think I always say that. So some people may be saying, what does that mean? Is that some kind of slur or no? But, and to be honest, I've been trying to. There's an issue with YouTube, and also the speed is a little bit down, but I don't know what's going on. I think it's at YouTube. So I apologize, everyone that does catch the YouTube stream, but go to lrn.fm and the stream is just fine. I will upload the audio with the video, and video later, but as for now, we're not going to have a YouTube stream. It's unfortunate, but there's not much I can do about it. So we were talking before the break there, Tom, the mechanics on a government-less societies and how the services and whatnot function and what the motivations, if any, are for people to actually live honestly, injure no one, give every man his due. So I know people did not hear you before, but the LRN stream heard you, so I'm not necessarily going to have to repeat that. But here, I mean, so you weren't inclined to call the police, were you?
No, of course not. Like I said, I was, I'm trying to really get along with everybody, and it went through my head to just grab that thing just grab it and smash it. And take what may, and but I didn't. Matter of fact, when the police drove by, they also had an ice luge, drinks in their front yard with bottles, all racked up on there. Like I said, it was a block party, and there were a lot of minors there, and I was like, "Nope, time to go. I don't even want to be here for this." But the cops didn't stop; they drove by. But again, like I said, I had, and then no kidding, two nights later. Let's see, this thing that happened was over the weekend, so it was the block party weekend, and then of course on the 4th of July, some more people had some fireworks, and I was sitting out there watching, want to make sure the house doesn't burn down, and sure enough, that knucklehead was out there and lit one more of those off, and it went up and went away. It was fine, but you just got to shake your head, man.
Yeah, there was. You mentioned fireworks. I guess since it's that time of the, it's that week. I know that a number of years out here, for those not familiar with San Bernardino, is California desert, and it's like it's raining now, but it's still in the middle of a severe drought, and so there's water restriction, and one of the dumbest things. And they sell them out here. They sell them out in Phoenix too. You can just go to Walmart or whatever, and you can buy fireworks. And I think it's one of the dumbest things you can do is to. Now it's different in Michigan, but I get that. But here, there was someone I can't remember how many years ago it was, but they did probably a few $1 million worth of damage because they were using fireworks in San Bernardino, and they caught the mountain on fire. I mean,
and now how does a person like that? How is a person like that held liable and responsible? Let's say he's broke. He's 22 years old. He lives in his mom's basement, eating Hot Pockets and drinking Mountain Dews, and he's got nothing. Now what? What do you do with this guy? He just created millions of dollars worth of damage. Maybe let's say no one was hurt. Let's leave that out. No injury to any person. Well, how does this guy make this right? How can he ever make this right? He'll never make that much money. Maybe.
No, I don't think. Well, let's say the way it would be done nowadays, he would go to jail. So I believe we would have a prison and jail. It would be a lot more transparent. Obviously, it wouldn't be administered by a ruling class, and it would be for only violent people. But what do? Would somebody who causes $1 million worth of damage because of negligence, let's say it was fireworks, let's say he wasn't doing well with the a fire, a campfire, or let's say he was really stupid and it was because he flung a cigarette out the window. I mean, do you think prison is something that would be necessary and justified in that situation?
I don't like the idea of prison at all, but the guy has to be held responsible for what he did. I don't know the answer. I don't know.
It may be he's working the rest of his life to pay off that debt. Certainly, that is justified. I don't think. I don't think you mean you're against prison. You're just against prison for people who haven't caused physical harm to somebody. That's what you meant. Yeah.
And there is a way. I've had a friend of mine, my friend Kurt, actually the one that turned me on to you many years ago. He had an idea, and maybe he heard it from somebody else. I don't know. But to truly have private prisons like you have Walmart and Kmart or Verizon and AT&T, you pick the prison you want to go to. But when you go there, you have to sustain yourself. You're responsible for yourself. You screwed up. You did something in society that was so unacceptable that you have to go, and you get to pick whatever one you want. And you have to put in the effort when you're there. Otherwise, I don't know. It was just an idea.
Well, for myself, this is why I think it's better to keep things similar to what we have now, is whereas things are commonly owned and paid for without a ruling class, of course. And I say that because when you look at what you have now, private prisons have such, and I know I'm talking about with government, the thing is they have such a perverse incentive because their bottom line is to make as much money as possible, and it doesn't matter what the human cost is. That's the way corporations run. Money first. It doesn't matter what kind of damage that you do to people. So some of the most horrific stories you hear about prisons, a lot of them come out of the private system because, again, they have the incentive is to keep them full. And so there is incentive to get people in there. And, of course, they have kickbacks to judges and whatnot. So that I think if we can minimize that, and I think by having it commonly owned and being extremely transparent, just like the funds, and this is something we could talk about more on the other side of the break, where if it's commonly owned, there shouldn't be any secret. It should be not only audited every year, but the expenses should be a matter of public record. And it's just the situation. I'm up against. I don't want to get into because we have, like we've seen in the past, Tom, in the recent past. We know one of the incentives that they had for all this big immigration push the last 6, 7, or 8 years. For example, in Arizona, the governor had a financial interest in CCA or a private prison system. So by signing a law and making a policy to arrest more people so you keep the prisons at maximum capacity, the shareholders make more money. Which, of course, is, Jam Brewer had an interest in that. So, these are things that have to be, avoided. And we're trying to evolve socially, and we want to get rid of those problems. And so a lot of it has to do, get rid of the prison system as far as the system being used to support the services, the payment and support of the services. But there's still other incentives that we have to get rid of. We're up against the top of the hour break, so Tom, just hold tight. My name's Marc Stevens. LRN.FM is the stream we have just for today. We do not have the YouTube stream. I will get that posted at marcstevens.net after the show. So I do apologize for that. But hey, as usual, the LRN.FM stream is crystal clear. So appreciate that. We'll be back with your calls and talking about the mechanics of volunteering. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project, second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network. It's LRN.FM, live from the fortified compound in San Bernardino for July 7, 2018, taking your calls, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. It's 2020 in the hashtag. And get you in there. Frank Rizzo 3 Frank Rizzo with the number 3. And we're talking about the mechanics of a governmentless society and how services are provided and how disputes are taken care of. We're talking with Tom. He's been on the show before, a long-time listener participant. Welcome back. Tom? Did we lose Tom? Okay. Maybe Tom stepped away. So what we're going to do is we will, well, I did not want to do that. But what we're going to do is I will go to another caller, and looks like St. Louis, but I don't know. We have area code 626. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where you calling from? We're having another tech issue here? And they dropped off. Oh, okay. So while it was refreshing, they dropped off. So we'll try Tom again. We have Tom? We have Tom back? No Tom. Wow. I know we are having some thunderstorms, but I don't think that here in San Bernardino, I don't know if that is affecting things. But our St. Louis caller dropped off. Oh, no, that's 626. I think St. Louis is 636, but who knows? So, I don't know. Let me see what we got going on over here. Yeah, something is definitely wrong, because that should not be doing that. My audio's... Wow. Things are. I'm having a general breakdown of my equipment here, so I don't know exactly what's going on. Hopefully, my stream is fine up there on LRN.FM. So let me just check the Skype, and you guys can let me know that we're doing all right. Are we doing all right on the LRN stream? No? Okay. You can hear the LRN stream. All right. Well, I don't know what's going on. My call has dropped off, and Tom looks to be on there, but I don't hear. I've got no... Anyway, so we were talking about the mechanics of of living in a society that does not have a government. And Tom is saying I'm still on the phone, I guess. No, I've got no audio whatsoever from Tom. And that is showing up. No. All right, well, we're going to have another train wreck of a show here on the No Say Project, but we'll muscle through this the best that we can. It is 218-632-9399 is the number to get in. Hopefully that if you do call in, we'll be able to hear you. The passcode is 2020 and the pound sign. So Tom's saying he can hear me, but for some reason I'm getting absolutely no audio at all from my caller line. So that is just great. Glad to hear that. So I do apologize, everybody. But what do you do? I'll do what I can if I finish the show to mute all this out. But mechanics, I mean, these are legitimate questions. It's not a matter of, I don't think we answer the question by just saying, well, if it's not a violation of the non-aggression principle, then it's okay. Do you have to wait until there's a violation of the non-aggression principle? This is why we talk about imminent threats. I mean, just like what Tom was saying, that the guy was doing something that was reckless that could have caused, a couple $100,000 worth of damage to people's property. I mean, you're supposed to just sit back and wait for some jerk, some drunk a-hole to, cause all that damage? I imagine when it comes to fireworks that, you have the option of stepping in with a fire extinguisher and making it not, impossible for them to potentially burn a whole neighborhood down. I don't know all the details, but that's something that may be happening, not because of fireworks, but in San Diego. San Diego is dealing with a huge fire right now. Then Los Angeles area had one of the biggest, I think, in California history last year. There's, so that lasted quite a while. Do you just sit around waiting? No, non-aggression principle. They haven't actually done anything yet, so I don't think that's the answer for it, and I don't think it's the panacea that libertarians and anarcho-capitalists kind of make it out to be. There are going to be situations where there is an imminent threat or there's a potential threat there, and somebody is doing something that's reckless and stupid. So what are we supposed to do with a governmentalist society to stop that? Now, we could still have private security. In a governmentalist society, we're going to have these services. They're just not going to be paid for on a compulsory basis, and so that they can be brought in to help if the people just aren't willing to listen to reason and our just having a like I mentioned before, a fire extinguisher ready to kind of help in a situation like that. What we have to deal with is that. Or accept that there's going to be things that happen in a voluntary society that, just like now, we're not going to get addressed. It's not a utopia. We don't seek to have a perfect society. So there are going to be certain things that, hey, like what Tom brought up, there could be millions of dollars worth of damage done by some stupid kids. What can you do? Putting them in jail doesn't rectify the situation. The only thing, is the rest of their lives they could be paying for that. But that's the thing about insurance. It sucks. But there's going to be situations like that where there is no way to have stopped it, and there was no way to have the responsible parties actually take care of the damage that they have caused. So, but the important thing is that we are going to have, and we should have, these services. I believe that we can have them commonly owned, similar, just like what we're doing now. But they're not. You have the whole structure that's in place. There's no reason, I think, logically, to scrap the, let's say, like using New Hampshire as an example with the Free State Project. There's no reason to scrap the entire system. And there's no reason to scrap the entire system. There's going to be payment systems in place. I would be stupid to say that you have to get rid of all of that. That what we're getting rid of is the compulsory nature of it, the threats and the violence that comes with it. This has been a train wreck of a show. I can't stream because YouTube is down apparently. My caller line can't hear me, and now there's an emergency. I hear that. Yeah. We're up against a break. Mercifully, I think I may just play music for the rest of the show because my caller line will know what the hell is going on. I apologize to everybody. I'm surprised. I'll do my best to connect everything, and so we'll be back. Hopefully here on the No Stay Project in just a few moments, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No Stay Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. And we'll do what we can to get through this. It's 218-632-9399, 632-9399 is the the number to call in. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. You can also reach me on Skype at Frank Rizzo 3. Please instant message me first. So we're going to get to a call just real briefly. Teresa had left a message posted on the plea of guilty video. That if you haven't seen it, go to markstevens.net, check it out, or look it up on my YouTube channel. Is what if the judge you go in with the unsigned plea of guilty, and what do you do if the judge just says, okay, you're guilty, and moves on from there? I'm like, well, you don't have to sign it. You have to sign it. A guilty plea has to be signed. Just don't sign it. But you got to make it clear. It's like, I intend on pleading guilty. Has the prosecution met their burden so far? And I got a lot more detail in that video regarding that. So that's the short answer, Teresa, is don't sign it. if he can say, you're guilty, but you haven't actually pled guilty yet. So you don't sign it. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go to the calls. We have area code 626. Hopefully we can get it this time. I think is this Oscar?
Yes. Hey, Mark.
Welcome to the show, Oscar. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Los Angeles.
Oh, well, is it raining out there too?
Nope, it's hot up here.
Well, it's raining here in San Bernardino. We're actually getting some thunder, so it is real muggy. Right? It's hot and muggy.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's going on today?
I don't know how to start this. My first time on a live show, so.
No, it's that. Don't worry about it. It's well, what you were asking me was, can I provide a hint of what due process violations typically happen in traffic court?
Yeah. So, do I explain my situation to you? What of yours? Or?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, let's see here. So basically, I was taking public transportation as normal, and then so the arms went down in the railroad crossing, and then there was like signs everywhere that says like do not cross when the license bells ring. They weren't ringing at the same time, and then they also had the way they set up everything very similar to that of like another railway system that I used. So then I assumed it was fine, but then the officer found me and then cited me for something that I didn't know what was going on. So look at the law, quote unquote. It was very different from the signage that was around here. So then I didn't know about your show at the first time. So what I did a trial by declaration. I tried to like say, oh, the signs didn't match, but then they still found me guilty, saying like you broke the law. So then I was like, oh no, what am I supposed to do? And I was kind of looking up like how does the law apply to me, sort of that realm, and I managed to find your site. So then I was just trying to see what I could do at this point. So, but I already went to trial. I tried to use as many of the stuff that you talked about in your videos, like how does the vehicle code apply to me? How does the code apply to me? How does the Constitution apply to me? I also challenged their jurisdiction, but the judge was like very, very arrogant, and in some cases told me to like stop talking or shut up around that realm. So, and she was like very, very crazy. So now I'm just at the point of I'm like in appeals right now. So yeah, that's basically my situation so far.
Maybe you'll get a trial de novo out of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I already had a trial de novo.
Oh, you okay? Because you did that's right. You did the trial by declaration, and then the judge actually told you to. They used the words "shut up."
Stop talking, and then like around the realm, shut up. So.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, this is the first time seeing this.
So,
yeah.
Did any of that happen when you were cross-examining the police officer?
Oh yes, definitely. I used the two questions that you basically suggested. Like, what was the that you suggested in some of your past videos, which is one of them was did you file that cause action against me? She told me I forgot what she said exactly, but she said she's not gonna allow that question. And the officer even said I don't know. I even tried to move to strike the testimony from the sheriff, but I didn't say please move to strike the testimony. I did it in a different way, but then she still didn't want to hear anything else.
Well, you do have to set that up. Well, let's talk about some of the questions now. You must have been watching a video that was pretty old because at least for the last 5 years, what we've been wanting to do, at least 5 years, is because we typically don't have the time, we usually go right for the foundation of the prosecution's case, and that is that they saw you in California and they just assume that gives them jurisdiction, because if you're in California, then their sacred writ, their laws, must apply. And so we start there on a cross-examination.
Oh, yeah, about that. I tried to, they even said that, because the government enacted this law, it's something I have to follow. I was going to make a question about, how does that affect me, but then she wanted to stop my questioning, in a very, very mean way, so I wasn't able to ask that question. So, yeah.
Okay,
in a way, it's
that's what you call a basic denial of cross-examination, which is a pretty bad due process violation. So, who is the one that said the government enacts the law and you have to follow it?
The judge.
And was that during a cross-examination?
During cross-examination.
Wow.
So there was only the officer, the judge, and me. There was no prosecutor.
So the cop, did you object to the police officer being on the stand in the first place?
I forgot to.
Okay.
But I think I tried to strike his testimony once I asked it's about cause action. That question.
Okay, well let's go through this one point at a time here. It's very important that we file, when we do the demur, that we're also filing the Brady request. Now, just because there is no prosecutor, that does not relieve the police officer from his obligation, because he's acting as the prosecutor. He wrote a legal document, he filed into the court as if it was legitimate. He bears the burden. He has to provide Brady material and pretrial discovery, even if it is to just give it to you prior trial. Let me meet you up, Oscar. We'll be back in just a few moments. I think we've got things squared away here on the No State Project, so don't go away. We'll be back with Oscar in Los Angeles and those
Play the blues.
Yes, welcome back to the No State Project right here on the Liberty Radio Network, only on the Liberty Radio Network. Today, July 7, 2018. Get it posted up on YouTube later today and at markstevens.net. And glad to be with you. You want to join me here on the big show, you may do so at 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. We're talking about due process violations in traffic court, and the common one. So welcome back. We're talking about Oscar in Los Angeles, California. And so what we were talking about before the break was it's very important that keep in mind that the and this is actually, I heard this again this week, where I mentioned on the show, Oscar, last time, that a prosecutor was saying that evidence is actually a trial issue only. It actually came out again, or another prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, I forget the name, I wrote it, it's at home, but a federal prosecutor was telling somebody that evidence is a trial issue. And, that's one of these, what I would say is a serious ethical violation and also due process violation when they flat out lie to you and tell you, because jurisdiction, the issue of evidence that's being used against you is not a trial issue only. You have what's called a pretrial, and pretrial discovery, and it is beyond the. It is so far so dishonest for anyone to turn around and say when you ask for a pre-trial discovery, for them to say, I don't have to give you anything, that's a trial issue. Now, I know on minor traffic that they have to give you pre-trial discovery at least immediately prior to trial. So it's not a trial issue only. You have to have it before the trial so that you can actually prepare for trial. So here, for those listening, what you want to do, hold them to that burden and make your objection if they haven't given it to you. And here, when they're going to put the witness on the stand, you have to object, because if they don't have any evidence to show that they have personal knowledge of the matters that they're testifying to, then you should object to that. I mean, are you aware that, like in California, it's 702, most other places it's 602. Are you aware that every witness has to have personal knowledge of the matters they're testifying to?
Yes, so what I was planning to do is take advantage of the closing arguments to raise that objection. Then once I was asked to do my statement after the officer my testimony, she already went to the guilty plea and I wasn't given a closing argument. So I was like, oh, what? And then based on this, and then since she was going too fast, the only thing that I could think of at the time in order to reserve my right to appeal was to obviously appeal. And then
but when she didn't, all right, it's one thing for them to deny a closing statement in a minor traffic, or a minor thing like this. Did she give you the opportunity to actually put on a defense, so that after that she said you were done with the cross-examination of the police officer, did she give you an opportunity to put on a defense?
She gave me the opportunity to cross-examine the officer.
Okay.
And provide my own testimony.
She gave the opportunity to cross-examine a police officer, and what was the second half?
My testimony of what happened, the fact that happened during the alleged offense.
Okay, so she did give you the opportunity to put on a defense, because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll deny you that opportunity because they're so upset with the cross-examination. So the cross-examination is critically important. So if they don't give you the cross, which is what they typically do, then yes, that's something you make your objection. You have to object, or you can't appeal it. So it is a very serious due process violation for a judge or a magistrate or a hearing officer, whatever title they happen to be, who's ever presiding over the hearing, to not allow cross-examination is a denial of due process. It is a constitutional error of the first magnitude, and no amount of showing a want of prejudice would cure that. So it's certainly an issue that you want to bring up on appeal. I think here, not only can you do the appeal, but you should do a motion to vacate the judgment for these due process violations. So you do have the big one is the denial of cross-examination, and I can send you an informal appeal brief that you can do in California, and so a lot of it's just a template, but a lot of the argument is already in there, and you would just be able to have to put your facts in, what happened at the trial, what the judge said. She told me to shut up. She wouldn't, and then how she denied cross-examination. Wow, but that's a very common.
I already have your brief. I emailed you.
Oh, okay, you're the one that I sent that to. Yeah, it's So that one for in California, when you're doing something minor like that, you can get away, and the rules allow an informal brief where it doesn't have to be bound the way you do if you have to appeal again, then you'd have to do a formal brief. But at this point, you don't need to do that. So a lot of the issues are there. So you also have the due process violation where the judge assumed the police officer's burden of proof on jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction, and and so by doing it, they're not presuming you innocent, and that is again unfair. I would bet the farm that based on what you've told me so far, they probably did the judge say anything or do anything to lead you to believe that they were accepting or treating the prosecution's claim of jurisdiction as irrefutable?
I mean, the only thing I have so far is like when when I asked them to file a valid cause of action against me, they said, "Oh, the government enacted this law, you have to follow it." So I think that's the closest thing. Otherwise, like I already challenged jurisdiction at first. They said it was criminal, and I asked whether it was common law admiralty.
You didn't get that from me.
They didn't want to hear it.
Yo, sure, but you didn't. That's not something that I recommend. Well, the thing is, when you asked about a valid cause of action, and that absolutely is a relevant, on-point question because the police officer is the one who filed the complaint as if it was valid, and he is acting as the prosecutor. For the judge to have said that the government can enact laws, did you object and say, objection, that's not relevant? Did I lose you? It's just one of those kind of days, everybody. So we'll see if Oscar can get back on the show. See that this is an issue where you're a judge. Judges, especially at this level, just can't seem to shut up. They're lawyers typically, and it's more important that they get to talk than somebody who is forced to be there actually defend themselves and be allowed to defend themselves. And so here, whether the government has the moral right to create laws of their own is completely irrelevant to the question to the police officer as to whether he filed a valid cause of action. So it looks like we've got Oscar back, so we'll be back and discuss more of these due process violations when we get back here on the No State Project. So we've got a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. Listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. Glad to be with you here today for July 7, 2018. Talking with Oscar in Los Angeles. I hope we got Oscar back, and we're talking about due process violations. So if you want to discuss due process violations or how to effectively defend yourself, I guess it's in a way so that you will... the judge will have, if they're not going to do the right thing, will cause them to make some serious due process violations so that you can get remedy on appeal if you have to do that. So a denial of cross-examination, my opinion of this is if you have a clear-cut case of denial of cross, and they usually do this, if you cannot get a denial of cross, if you can't have it overturned based on that, then you're in a rigged game, and nothing was going to change these predators' minds. So, but let me bring back Oscar. Yeah, Oscar. So let me ask you a question here. When the judge gave that irrelevant statement, which whether they have the I mean, do you agree that whether the people government enact laws or have the power to enact laws, that's not actually relevant to the question that you asked regarding if the police officer filed a valid cause of action?
Wait, can you say that one more time, please?
Now, yes, your question was to the police officer who filed a complaint against you. You asked him if he had presented a valid cause of action in his complaint, and the judge wouldn't allow that on grounds that the government can enact laws and you have to follow that. Now, was what the judge said relevant to and have anything to do with the question you asked the police officer?
I asked this question to the police officer because, like, I think that was like the plan when I was watching some of your past videos. So, but the judge said all that what you just said.
Right, but what I'm asking you is, does that seem what the judge said? Does that seem relevant at all to the question that you were asking the cop?
I would say no, because like I was asking, did he file valid cause of action? Like, is there injury or something like that? I think that was the premise of that question. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, and you're not wrong is that it's believing that it's not relevant. What the judge did was deny effective cross-examination of your witness on something that wasn't relevant to the issue at hand. So the judge had no business interrupting and not allowing the police officer to answer that question. No,
and then she continued telling me that she won't. That the judge continued to tell me that she won't allow like similar questions to be asked. So then like I didn't know what else to do. So then I already asked all the factual questions beforehand. So I just stopped.
Well, what you want to keep in mind, Oscar, and anybody else who's going in there, if you just assume that what the judge is saying is a lie, you make an objection and you call them on it. So when she says something like that, you want objection. Are you under the impression that these are not relevant questions to a cross-examination?
Well, here's the thing in the context of the judge case that happened. When I challenged jurisdiction at first, which I didn't know was right or wrong based on what you told me before, she immediately like interrupted me and didn't let me have a chance to like raise other questions. So like I had to act fast in order to like try to defend myself in the matter of like what you talked about in your past videos. So
yeah, and that's why the role playing really helps. That's why you need to be using the word objection to get her to stop if possible. It doesn't mean she's going to, but it's something if you have to appeal and say, look, I objected, and she just wouldn't stop. She wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. You know, not allowing you to even ask questions, period. I mean, that's a denial of a fair trial because you can't defend yourself if you're being told to shut up. But the judge would have to be able to show, or actually if you go up on appeal, the judge's lawyer, the county attorney, would have to be able to show that your question was not relevant or appropriate. Well, relevant is really the only thing that's necessary here. Is not relevant to a cross-examination. And so it's easy for us to show the relevance of the question on cross-examination. So let's just examine that for a second. Asking the police officer, did you file a valid cause of action against me? Is that a relevant question on a cross-examination? Well, I believe it is because it goes to his competency and his credibility. Because who filed a complaint against you? Wasn't it the police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he file it with the court as if it was a legitimate complaint?
Well, I know he filed it because, I know he filed it.
Yeah, he signed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So is it accurate to say that the police officer wrote a legal complaint, a legal document, and filed it with the court for you to be prosecuted.
Sounds like it.
Seems reasonable to me. That's what the facts tell me. Yeah, factually that's accurate. He signed a legal complaint against you as a complainant. And you can testify from personal first-hand knowledge or report here on the show. The police officer was physically in court prosecuting you.
Well, he's the only other person.
Right.
Only other person besides me. So
right.
Looks like it.
So we know that the police officer wrote the complaint, a legal document, filed into court as if it was valid, and showed up to prosecute you. Because when you file a complaint, whether you do it, I do it, anybody, you are certifying that you have done a reasonable inspection, that everything there is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge, so he filed what he is certified is a legitimate complaint. So if he's already testified and you're on cross-examination, it is fully relevant and justified for you to question him on the sufficiency of his complaint. He wrote it. That goes directly to his prior statements. It goes to what he did prior to being put on the stand. And that is competency and credibility are relevant issues for you and I or anyone else to bring up on a cross-examination. So the judge or his lawyer will not be able to show that the question was not relevant. And if he can't show that the question wasn't relevant, as long as you or I can show relevance, I've said it before, I'll say it again, relevance is king in court. The truth of anything you have to raise is completely off the table if you cannot show it's relevant. So I don't know if you knew that going in, but hopefully you and everyone listening to the show that didn't know that knows that now. Relevance is king when you are in court. It doesn't matter how right you think you are if the issue you're raising isn't relevant yet. And so here you've got a clear-cut denial of cross-examination.
Okay. Well, I think I raised a similar argument when I told them but the cop cited me for this violation, and then the judge well, he's not a lawyer, so he can't answer that question. So, and that was stuck there.
Do you remember basically what the judge is saying, that even though the police officer is acting in the capacity of a lawyer, so just to break it down, he is going out as in a representative capacity. He is not acting on his own. At least that's what the front that they put up, right? Was the cop, at any time did the cop testify or make any statements that he was acting as himself and not on behalf of the state? Well, I'm pretty certain, we're up against the break. I'm pretty certain the police officer was not making any statements that he was acting as a free agent. He was acting on behalf of the government or the people of the state of California. We'll be back and we'll examine more of these due process violations that happened to Oscar in Los Angeles when we get back from the top of the hour break. We'll start the third of 3 hours of Interview Radio right here on Liberty Radio and on LRN.FM.
Chris, give it to me now.
Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. It's July 7, 2018 here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM, and glad to be with you here from the Fortified Compound in San Bernardino. Sorry, we got major tech issues today and couldn't stream on YouTube, so we'll get that. We'll get the audio only uploaded hopefully today. And you can certainly get the audio of the podcast at markstevens.net. And if you are subbed to the podcast on iTunes, then, of course, you'll get it automatically. If you're not subbed yet, then get subbed. We're talking, taking calls today, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Talking about, right now, we're talking with Oscar in Los Angeles, talking about some due process violations. So when it came to issues of whether the police officer filed a valid cause of action and the issues of jurisdiction, the judge gave as an excuse that the cop is not a lawyer.
Yep.
Okay. So
and the government laws. So
okay, when they say something like that, you have to make an objection. You want to get a clarification for what the judge actually means when they're saying something like that. Because I believe what they're doing is they're not making a complete statement and they're not being clear enough. And that's because lawyers love to live in vagueness. Lawyers tend not to want to be very specific. And especially when they're government type, because they never want to have any responsibility for what they said. So they want to be able to have plausible deniability. That's not what I meant. So we make an objection and say, objection. Are you saying because he's not a lawyer, he wasn't qualified to do what he did? He wasn't qualified to write a legal document against me? And of course, that is a leading question. And that's pretty much every question we should be asking them is a leading question. So that is something that we want to be able to, we should do to more effectively defend ourselves in these situations. Can you imagine what the judge would have said if you made such an objection and asked them? Even if you just asked them objection, you saying he wasn't qualified to write the complaint against me?
Yeah, she'll probably tell me to shut up again or something that wrong.
Well, and that's very possible. But we still need to make the objection because if we have to appeal it, then we want to be able to quote her. You want to be able to put in there, say, look, I objected when they said that the lawyer made the lawyer crack. So when I asked for a clarification, because that's relevant, are they saying that they're not qualified to make such determinations? Which, the thing is, it is relevant because everything the judge did to you. Wouldn't you agree that the judge forcing you into that trial was based off of the statements and claims made by the police officer against you?
Yeah.
Of course. So, what it comes down to, look, the judge is not going to get and intrude into your life unless the police officer, gives him a reason to do that, or him or her a reason to do that. They're doing that, and they're bringing the judge into your life because they filed a complaint with the judge as if the complaint was valid. And then to turn around and say that the police officer who wrote the ticket doesn't have to answer any questions and then make a vague statement that, look, they can force you into this, Oscar, but they don't have to actually be lawyers and understand and be competent and qualified to make the statements to force you into this situation to defend yourself. I mean, come on. I mean, talk about arrogance. Good Lord, people.
I know, right?
And it's no justification to say that the cop is just a witness, because that's not what the facts say. The facts show that the cop wrote a legal complaint against you. To turn around and hold that he's not qualified to have done that and still accept the complaint against you anyways if it was valid? I mean, any honest person would say, wow, we got a real problem here. I don't think the police officer is qualified to have written the complaint. So whether I think you're guilty or not is completely irrelevant because he wasn't qualified to do this in the first place. And who's the one saying they're not qualified? It wasn't you, right?
Yep.
It was the judge.
This judge.
So, we can take your opinion out of this because your opinion, like mine, means nothing. But if the judge is saying they're not qualified, that's supposed to mean something. And the problem is, of course, they're criminals and they're not going to be consistent. See, the judge already had you as guilty, so they're going to say and do whatever's necessary to comply with that predetermination. So if it means saying something stupid like, well, the cop's not a lawyer, he's not qualified, doesn't need to be qualified. Oh, really? You're willing to put my butt in jail off of the statements of someone you just said wasn't qualified to have done so. So Do you think it would be a due process violation for the judge to actually state on the record, even if it was, kind of vague, that the police officer wasn't qualified to write the complaint?
Yeah, I would say it's a due process violation, but there's one thing I want to correct here. There was no record, so I have to create a statement on appeal. So
Right. Well, but yeah. You'll have to make. You do your statement on appeal, and if the judge's lawyer disagrees, now there may be a factual dispute. They may say that the judge never said that, and then it's your word against the lawyers. Now they may.
What do I do in case that happens?
Well, are you absolutely sure that they didn't make an audio recording?
Well, they said, "Oh, there's no record. You're gonna have to make one yourself." Because when I tried to object their jurisdiction, one of the phrases I used, like, "Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Let the record court show that this is a criminal jurisdiction." And then the judge immediately said, "There is no appeal." It's like, okay, then what am I going to do for my appeal? It's like, you're going to have to make one yourself. Like, okay.
Well, what you have to do, there may be an audio recording that you'll have to get a transcript made of. So I would contact the clerk on Monday or Tuesday and find out if there's an audio recording that you can get. And that's one of the things they don't charge you. You don't have to mortgage your house to pay for, and get a copy of that, and then you can have that transcribed as and submit that as a transcript that can verify what you're saying are due process violations.
Okay.
I believe it's a due process, and I believe it is a due process violation because it violates what I think any reasonable person would say violates traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice to allow proceedings to be instituted, maintained, and on the say-so of somebody who the court said is not a lawyer, not qualified to have done so. I don't think that to me smacks of unfairness.
Okay.
This is not a situation where you are filing a complaint against somebody and you're not even remotely qualified to do so. Okay? We're talking about somebody who's acting in a professional capacity. And he is acting in the capacity of a lawyer, even though, he has a legal exception to do so. So he's not committing a crime. Like I was saying before the break, he is acting on in a representative capacity, and he is writing legal documents and filing them into court. He is acting as the state's attorney. And to turn around and say he's not qualified to do that, but we're going to uphold his decisions anyway, even if there isn't a Supreme Court case that specifically says that that's unfair, that is not fair. I mean, that would be like you being said to none of your testimony, that all the testimony you gave, you were incompetent to give, and then accepting it. Hey, we're up against a break, so I got to let you go. We'll address some more of these on the show, and then you can contact me off air. My name is Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We'll continue with your calls and talking about due process violations. And we get back. So welcome back to the No State Project. The number here is 218-632-9399. If you want to effectively defend yourself in court, or just learn how to better argue, or sharpen your BS meter when somebody is talking out of their butt. Definitely give us a call, 218-632-9399, and we'll get to the calls in a second. This idea that is thrown around, so many of these lies, that police officers don't have to answer questions regarding the complaints that they wrote, that they're not lawyers. They don't have to be lawyers to write the ticket, you jackass. I mean, all they're trying to do is, and what it is, it's evidence of their prejudice against you. If the police officer wrote the ticket and the ticket contains statements, prior statements, then that is fair game on the cross-examination. It's certainly fair before he's put on the stand. So if they don't allow a prior to, because they're in such a rush to get him on the stand, then they have to allow it. Their prior statements, the man, it started the whole thing. He's acting as a prosecutor, and I just don't accept for a second as fair that a judge could turn around and say, well, he's not a lawyer, and still accept it as if he was competent and credible in what he did. So make your objection and put the judge on the spot. Make him do what you can through an objection and a leading question to have him explain, what does that mean? He doesn't have to answer the question because he's not competent. He wasn't competent to write the ticket. He filed it as if it was valid. Let him answer the damn questions before or after the cross-examination or during. But he should be answering the questions because he's acting as a prosecutor. We have a call. I believe we're in Washington. Area code 425. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey.
I'm sorry, I had you muted up. I had one button. What was your name? Where are you calling from?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hey, this is Ted from Washington. It's been probably a year and a half or so since I've called, and I'm calling you from a different number this time around.
Well, that would explain it. Well, good to speak with you again, Ted. What do you got for us today?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say my sincere apologies. I haven't called in for over the year. It's been quite a long time. Been meaning to be more active. But I plan to redeem myself by meeting you on the first weekend of August. I'd like to make an effort to come out and meet you.
Well, you going to the Jackalope Fest?
Yes, that is my intention. I want to be there. I'll do my very best to be there and meet you live and then see other presenters as well.
I'm certainly going to do my best to get there. I do enjoy it up there when it's 115 degrees in Phoenix, and at that time it will be. It's really nice to enjoy 85 degrees up in Pine Country, which Bacchus Meadow is absolutely beautiful.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate your announcements for the past month or so, just advertising and letting people know the upcoming dates and where it's going to happen, the website. So looking forward to that.
I'm glad you reminded me.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's background noise, but I'm glad you reminded me because I didn't mention it today. Jackalope, yes, the first week of I think it's July 31st through August 6th, up at Bacchus Meadow, and northeast part of Arizona. It's about 2 hours northeast of Phoenix, so definitely check it out. If you're in Phoenix, right. Obviously you probably know you take 87 up there to Payson, and then that you may, there'll be signs, but at the McDonald's there, you make the right. Anyway, she's got directions up to Bacchus Meadow at the Jackalope Fest at rainberry.com. So, but a quick search will get that. So I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, so sorry about the call quality. I'm doing a little bit of traveling, and this quality is as best as it's going to get. So sorry in advance.
Hey, this show has been a tech nightmare, and this is one of the lesser of the problems. Right on.
Hey, so the reason I'm calling today is I have a small issue with a collections agency. I'm in collections for failure to report the sale of a vehicle, to report it with the state. Usually you have, 30 days or less than that to report any sale of a vehicle with the state. Even though I did have legitimate paperwork, signature of the buyer, bill of sale, now they're inflicting upon me all kinds of accruing fees, and they're saying that the RCW 46 applies to me. And once again, I need to put the hammer down and ask them the same strategies. How does that code apply? But it's a twofold problem. Is right now it is the collection agency, and then just before that it was the tow truck company that took the vehicle from the people who bought it from me. They bought it, and they must have had some kind of ill intent because they abandoned it. And even though I never registered it, I only sold it forwarding from a bill of sale that I got from an auction. It was not roadworthy. So they took it upon themselves. They did whatever they did with it, and then they left it alone. The tow truck company came after me saying I was the last registered owner. I said, no, I wasn't. And in their very own paperwork, they do show the previous owner before me. So there's a little bit of conflict and hypocrisy going on. But my main problem now is with this collection agency, and if there's anything I could do potentially against the tow truck company besides a silly little Yelp review.
Well, the collection
that's
agency,
my main problem.
is this a private collection agency that's doing it on behalf of the state?
I don't believe so. I honestly don't know if they're private or public, but they are coming after me on behalf of the tow truck company.
Okay, so it's probably not a state agency.
Most likely not. I'll have to actually dissect that and find out for sure, but I don't believe it is.
Oh, well, you were saying it initially. I thought maybe it was Okay, well, it is a little bit different than we're used to here on the show.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a feeling that there's going to be different twists on things.
Well,
But basically, they don't care. They'll write to me, and I hate to say this because it might throw you off. They'll write to me in all capitals. So I'll respond to them in all capitals. For me, it's not a straw man thing. It's more of a, hey, are you yelling? Did you forget the caps lock on? Are you?
well, yeah,
it's up in that way.
little taste of their own medicine. So they're saying that you are somehow responsible because these other people abandoned it.
That's exactly what they're saying, and basically they don't care. I forwarded them the bill of sale, the license ID number from the buyers, and between the lines, what I've been figuring out is that the buyers most likely had some ill intent because they never registered it themselves as a legitimate third party to want to keep the car and enjoy it. And
Yeah, but hold on,
whatever.
Ted. We're up against the break, so I got to mute you up. Won't be able to hear you anyway, so we'll address this on the other side. My name is Marc Stevens, listening to the No State Project. You're on the Liberty Radio Network. We'll be back with Ted in Washington in just a few moments, so don't go anywhere. Back here talking with Ted in Washington, who hey, maybe I'll get to meet with others at the 2018 Jackalope Fest in Bacchus Meadow in Arizona at the week of the 31st of July through August 6th. So check that out if you are in Arizona. Definitely go up. It's worth it, especially if you live in Phoenix. Beautiful, beautiful area. You get a break from the heat. I don't get a break from the heat this weekend. It's not just that it's hot here in San Bernardino, but it's so muggy. Something people joke around there, Ted, that, Phoenix, 115, but it's a dry heat. When it's 109 and humid, you want to kill yourself.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because I used to live across Redlands Boulevard in Loma Linda, right across from San Bernardino, back when they had the SR-71 at the airfield there in the 80s.
I'm sorry to. Well, at least it wasn't as bad. They call it San Bernardino now. So.
That's true. You're right.
Yeah, I was talking with someone who works at the Stater Brothers up here on 40th in San Bernardino, and there've been shootings in the parking lot.
I believe it. There were shootings there when I was young, so not much has changed. More population, all kinds of things.
No, it's a terrible area. So to get back, this company that is seeking to, this collection agency, now, in the paperwork, which you said was in all caps, they're saying something that the RCW is requiring you to do certain things?
Yes, they said that because I failed to report the sale of the car to the state or the DMV within 30 days of when it happened, that I'm responsible for all fees thereafter, towing, abandonments, collections. That's kind of my dilemma right now.
I think what I would say is that I with caution that I respond to you, because I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on the radio, that do you have any evidence whatsoever that would prove that the RCW, that the Constitution and the RCW apply and create obligations on me?
I will approach them in that manner. I don't have the proof, and I don't think, nor do they, nor will they care. I just think that they're going to continue to escalate it until the pain is unbearable.
Well, if they want to take you to court, they have to comply with the clean hands doctrine. And that, the clean hands doctrine is that court is a drastic last resort, and that everything should be done reasonably expected to resolve the matter without going to court. So if you're willing to work with them and resolve this, and they're not willing to, then that may be something that would prevent them from having standing to complain against you in court if they would escalate it to that point.
I hope so. I have furnished them proof and evidence that I no longer have possession of the car and who the new owner allegedly should be. They just don't care. They want their money right away, and they're going to make it more painful as we go about. But I will use this strategy and try to approach him once again, and we'll see. If it gets to court, then I can deal with it as we get there. But I just wanted to run it by you, and so far so good. It's more of what I thought to do. I also been meaning to call into the show for quite a while, many months now. And just wanted to touch base so you can hear my voice again, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. That'll be so much fun.
Yeah, I love it up there. You're gonna really like it. It's a great area, and it's for more the technical stuff that United States Supreme Court and they've ruled consistently on this, that courts only hear justiciable cases of controversies, and those are controversies or cases that are ripe. Something that is, like I've mentioned before, everything has been done reasonably expected to avoid going to court. The conflict cannot be resolved outside of court. It's a last resort, and they file. And that goes directly to your standing to complain, your right to complain and seek redress from the courts. And I think it's really important. This is, it's just like when any collection agency comes after you, to address it early and keep a record. And so that if they're not going to exercise good faith and they're not going to try to work with you to resolve the conflict, then the courts that alone should bar them from seeking redress, because it's not ripe. It is not justiciable, because they haven't done anything reasonably expected to resolve the matter in good faith. So I would keep a record, maybe just get a certificate of mailing, something to prove what you mailed, and keep a record so that you can show. So if they file against you, you can file your motion to dismiss for a lack of jurisdiction, failure to state a claim for which relief can be granted, because, again, they did not try and get good faith to resolve the matter.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yes, I have detailed files of all my correspondence. And even if they try to pull the issue of, well, you have a license, don't you? Okay. And I've heard you mentioned it in the past, can the car still get towed without anybody having a license? And sure enough, it can. Can I still get the ticket without having the license? So that'll be very interesting / entertaining, as hopefully we never get there. But I know what to do. I do have your second book. I just sincerely apologize. I've fallen off the radar ever since I called in a long time ago about the window tinting, and then what's-his-face that wouldn't shut up, he kind of picked on me about the tinting. So I'm looking forward to get back in the game with everybody.
Now, remind me, I think I know the answer to this, but You're the one who sent me the picture of the court across the street from
The rubber stamp.
the rubber stamp.
Yes. The rubber stamp company right across from the Everett Court up in Everett, Washington. Yeah, this was, 10 years ago when we first got started. That was amazing.
That was a hilarious. Yeah, that picture was hilarious. That was great.
Yeah, I'll have to dig it up and see if I can find it and send it to you again. Maybe you can put it on your latest show archives. That's how I discovered you 10 years ago. I'm really thankful, actually. It sounds stupid, but I'm thankful I got that ticket because soon after discovering you and two others, I was able to verbally talk my way out of tickets on the side of the road in the middle of the night, getting off of a night shift job at the time. So kudos. It really does work. I need to get onto the Skype chat, which you've been harping on everybody. It's very valuable. And I just eat my own words for not getting on that Skype chat.
Oh, take care of that and keep in touch. So let me know. I would fire off that response and get it to them. Mail it to them Monday, and see what they have to say there. And you put in there your work. You want to work with them in good faith to resolve this matter, but you need to know this first, because to come to a resolution, it has to be certain that you had this obligation. Because that really is the foundation of their claim against you. And they have to have evidence of that.
That is awesome. I understand. That's perfect. Just one other topic really quick before we go.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to ask you, what would you recommend for, not necessarily sightseeing or tourism, but what would you recommend to check out in Maricopa County in the Phoenix Valley? I'll be up there pretty soon, and I'll have a day to check out the place. And is there any points of interest or anything that you would recommend, regardless of the heat? I grew up in Palm Springs, so the triple digits, they're common.
There are a number of places to go hiking, but obviously do it later in the day or early in the day. But if you like to hike, going up Camelback is awesome. But you're gonna have to do that really early.
That. Okay, Camelback, excellent.
Yeah, you have Squaw Peak, and then there's the Superstition Mountains too. But I don't know exactly where you're going to be, but Camelback is in Scottsdale, so you get the extra benefit of being in Scottsdale.
I'll be right in downtown Phoenix, very, very close to probably some of your favorite restaurants.
Well, I don't get to Phoenix too much, but yeah, I've got but I'm completely out of time, so I got to let you go. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, we do get to see you. My name is Marc Stevens. Listen to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We'll be back with the last segment of the show for July 7th in just a few moments, so don't go.
Top of the site. As we continue here with Dan in Nebraska, we're talking about this idea of the so-called universal basic income, which it seems like every week there's some sort of puff piece in the media, the mainstream media, about this. The more recent one here that we're sharing tonight is about Richard Branson from the Virgin Group, who has been pimping out the universal basic income idea in a recent New York Times article. And Dan, you had brought up this idea.
Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. It's been one of those shows, so I do apologize for that. I will be live on the Wednesday commercial-free broadcast, unlike last week, on my YouTube channel. And the audio for today's show will be posted at markstevens.net. And Oscar is in Los Angeles asking me some questions, how to contact me off air. Of course, you do that at Frank Rizzo 3 on Skype, and email is markstevens@mail.com. You can always post at the website, and I will get that. And all the contact information is on markstevens.net. He's also asking, in regards to the informal brief, do I file it as if it were a regular brief after I modify it to be relevant to my case? Yes, you do. You file it like any other pleading. Also, let's say that the court does not have an audio recording. What happens? If you want to be safe, what you can do is you can put the statements of fact into a supporting affidavit, and then you can file that as support for your appeal. So when you're making certain points in the appeal, you can reference your affidavit, and then if the prosecutor has a problem, they have to bring contradictory evidence against you. So that's what I would do there. And just in the time I have left here, people ask me about appeals and to explain appeals. Well, in general, what you're doing on an appeal is you are asking the appellate court questions. So when you look at an appeal brief, or if you're even reading a court opinion, typically what they'll do is they'll lay out the issues or the questions that the appellant has raised for the court to answer. So in a general sense, let's say your question is, it could be, did the trial court violate due process? And let's say by denying effective cross-examination. The answer to that question is should absolutely and always be yes, that they did violate due process by denying effective cross-examination. But what you have in your brief is you have to have your facts, and you will have, in your appendix, you should have, if you're doing a formal brief, you will have your transcript. So when you get to the part of your brief where you're laying out your argument to support your position that, yes, they did violate due process, you have to give the facts. So if we're using, for example, let's use for an example an actual appeal where it was Rebecca in Chandler, Arizona, where she asked the police officer who determined probable cause questions regarding the facts that he relied on to support his claim that there was jurisdiction, that just because Rebecca was physically in Arizona, that the Constitution and laws applied and gave him jurisdiction. The judge was adamant in not allowing an answer to the question, even though it went to their prior statements. So they had already stated on the record that they determined that the laws applied and gave them jurisdiction, and the judge would not allow a follow-up question on the facts that they relied on to support that claim. So we then put that into the statement of facts. It's from the transcript, and that supports the argument that the trial was unfair because the judge denied effective cross-examination. So because the question was relevant and did go to prior statements. And so anytime a statement is made by a police officer or any witness, and you ask a follow-up question directly related to that question, and it goes to their competency and credibility, what facts did you rely on that led you to believe that was true? That is a relevant question on cross-examination, and for the judge in Chandler, Arizona, to have not allowed an answer to that question was unfair and denied due process, and that it certainly offended traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. So that's something that we would put in the appeal to support that question. Did the trial court violate due process by when they denied effective cross-examination? So you have to have your evidence to show that, of course, there was a denial of effective cross-examination. And again, our burden of proof there is the question has to be relevant and go to the competency and credibility of the witness. And here it's based on a prior statement. And so any prior statement that is, providing you can show relevancy, is appropriate, and to not allow that would not be fair and would be a denial of effective cross-examination. Here, when we're talking about what happened with with Oscar in Los Angeles, when the police officer, when he asked the police officer questions regarding the competency and credibility or the validity of the complaint that he wrote and filed into the court, the judge wouldn't allow questions on that. And it's obvious that it should be obvious that that is not fair. And again, you may argue plausibly that it has no business on a cross-examination, but it should have. I don't believe that that's true. The police officer made the statements and he put it on the complaint and he filed it into the court and he's acting as a prosecutor. He should answer the question. I will. Yes, these questions should be asked and directed to the police officer before he is put on the stand. Sure. But another issue would be, was it unfair and a denial of due process to allow the witness to testify when when there was no showing of personal firsthand knowledge? Yes. And you have to show your evidence to prove that. You can show in your transcript the way you should be objecting to the witness being put on the stand. So if you want to see a graphic example of an objection to a witness being put on the stand where there is no showing of personal knowledge, go back to Ian Freeman's hearing. Ian Freeman, of course, of Free Talk Live and this network, the video that's at markstevens.net with his DMV hearing, where most of what my participation had to do with the fact that the witness didn't have personal knowledge of the matters he was testifying to. And those matters were, he determined the laws applied to Ian, and he did not have personal knowledge of that. So these are the facts that we would use to then back up our claim that that there was a denial of due process. So that really is the nuts and bolts of an appeal. This is the issue that I'm raising. This is, I think this is unfair and it warrants reversal, such as, example, denial of effective cross-examination. That's a constitutional error of the first magnitude. No amount of showing a want of prejudice would cure it. So it's typically reversed. And so these are the facts that I base it on. So whether it's like with Oscar, what happened there, or with the judge stepping all over, telling him to shut up, and not allowing questions on that because the cop's not a lawyer, or a situation like what happened with Rebecca and Chandler, where the police officer was declared incompetent to give legal conclusions, even though we were asking a question that required him to present the facts that he relied on at the stop. So you can then also show that it was unfair because the prosecution's objection was not on point. It was not an honest objection. And so the judge, at the very least, should have denied the objection with instructions to the attorney not to be or to make such this objection and waste everyone's time. And speaking of being at it, we are out of time here on the. We will be live on the Wednesday broadcast. So, hey, till then, solid.